after the presentation of my trilogy, fractalthetrilogy.com, I sat in silence for a while, still feeling the echo of the final bell, the energy of the people, the questions left hanging in the air. And I started thinking about the future. Not just the distant science fiction future of my story, but the very real, very near future we are all walking into. What kind of world are we creating day by day, choice by choice? I looked around at the trends, the scrolling, the rushing, the craving for more. I noticed how easy it is now to live disconnected from our higher self, to be driven not by awareness, but by ego, not by meaning, but by appearance. And then a question struck me: if this trend continues, what kind of products, services, and experiences will become the most successful? What does the market look like in a society where people are less aware, more reactive, more hungry for shortcuts and validation? So I followed the thread, and what emerged was not a judgment, but a map of the world we're unconsciously building when awareness fades. Let's explore it together, the top 10 things that thrive in a disconnected society and what they reveal about where we're heading and how we can choose differently. 1. Fast fashion and consumer trends. Why it thrives. In a world where people feel disconnected from their deeper identity, they often seek it externally, especially through what they wear. Fashion becomes more than clothing. It turns into a quick way to say, "This is who I am." Fast fashion brands feed this need by offering cheap, trendy clothes that change every week. The ego loves novelty. It constantly craves something new to feel alive. So people buy more and more, not out of necessity, but to fill a sense of emptiness or to keep up with others. The result? A cycle of short-lived satisfaction, overflowing closets, and a growing environmental crisis. It's not about style. It's about seeking identity through stuff. 10 years ago, a new outfit was something special. Today, it's disposable. In just over a decade, the fast fashion market nearly tripled, from around $35 billion in 2010 to more than $100 billion in 2025. Clothes are produced at a dizzying pace. The world now makes twice as many garments as 15 years ago, while the average person buys 60% more pieces but wears them for only half as long. Shein, once a little-known online shop, now sells over $30 billion a year. Proof that endless novelty has become the business model. Zara and H&M churn out new collections weekly, training us to crave the next thing before the last one has even been worn. Region by region, the story is the same. In Asia Pacific, the growth is explosive, plus 75% in a decade, as production hubs became consumption giants. In North America and Europe, people already consumed heavily, but demand still grew by 50-60%. Latin America, the Middle East, and Africa are catching up fast, with wardrobes filling at record speed. The numbers tell us this isn't about clothing anymore. It's about identity. When people feel less connected within, they search for belonging in what they wear. Fast fashion has become the perfect mirror of disconnection. Cheap, constant, and never enough. 2. Influencer-driven social media platforms. Why it thrives. When people feel disconnected from their inner self, they start looking for worth in the eyes of others. Social media becomes the perfect stage where the ego can perform, seeking likes, comments, and followers as a substitute for true connection. Influencers, often shaped by carefully curated images and highlight reels, become modern idols. They seem to have it all, and millions try to imitate them, not realizing that much of what they see is filtered, staged, or sponsored. This constant comparison makes people feel not enough, so they spend more time scrolling, posting, and chasing approval. Platforms are designed to keep us hooked, not inspired. In the end, we become content instead of becoming conscious. Scroll, like, post, repeat. In a single decade, social media transformed from a pastime into the world's biggest stage for ego. Back in 2015, there were about 2.3 billion social media users. By 2025, that number has more than doubled to over 5.4 billion, 2 out of every 3 people on Earth. And the average user now spends more than 2 hours a day scrolling, posting, and comparing. In the United States and Europe, adoption is nearly saturated. Almost everyone with internet access is on at least one platform. In Asia Pacific, the numbers are staggering. Close to 3 billion users, making it the beating heart of global social media. Even Latin America, the Middle East and Africa, once lagging, have seen adoption climb by 60-80% in a decade as smartphones spread. Influencers are the new celebrities and validation is the new currency. Platforms built to connect us now profit from keeping us hooked, from amplifying envy, comparison, and the constant chase for attention. The money trail is clear. Advertising revenues, influencer sponsorships, and platform profits have exploded, riding on a simple truth. The more disconnected we feel inside, the more we seek recognition outside. 3. Ultra-processed food and instant delivery. Why it thrives. When we lose touch with our bodies and inner rhythms, we start eating to fill emotional gaps, not to nourish ourselves. The ego wants quick pleasure, not long-term well-being. That's why ultra-processed foods loaded with sugar, salt, and fat are everywhere. They're fast, cheap, addictive, and available 24/7 with just a tap. Cooking becomes rare. Waiting becomes annoying. We don't ask, what does my body need? But rather, what's fast and makes me feel good now? Food delivery apps explode because they promise instant satisfaction with zero effort. But the cost is high. Poor health, fatigue, brain fog, and a deeper disconnect from what truly sustains us. In the end, we consume to feel full, but stay deeply empty. Dinner used to mean time, preparation, even ritual. Today, for millions, it means tapping a screen. In the last decade, the global ultra-processed food and delivery market has exploded. Food delivery alone has more than doubled since 2017, reaching a value of around $150 billion in 2024, with annual growth near 10%. Consumption habits tell the same story. People eat 60-70% more processed snacks and ready meals than they did a generation ago. Ultra-processed products now make up over half of daily calories in many Western countries. Region by region, the trend is relentless. In North America and Europe, convenience dominates. Delivery grew 65% in a decade, while processed food has become the norm. Asia Pacific surged even faster, 85%, with super apps like Meituan and Grab normalizing on-demand meals. Latin America, the Middle East, and Africa followed, growing 60-75% as urban lifestyles shifted and smartphones spread. The kitchen has slowly become less of a gathering space and more of a storage room for takeout boxes. What the money shows us is simple. When awareness drops, we feed not our bodies but our cravings. Fast food, faster delivery, hunger satisfied instantly, but emptiness often lingers. 4. Pornography and casual hookup apps. Why it thrives. In a disconnected society, real intimacy, emotional, spiritual, vulnerable, feels too risky or too slow. So people turn to instant surface-level pleasure to avoid loneliness or emotional pain. Pornography and hookup apps offer the illusion of connection without the complexity of real relationship. They're quick, easy, and offer dopamine on demand, but they reduce human intimacy to pixels or swipes, stripping away depth and meaning. The ego seeks control and satisfaction without commitment. These platforms deliver that perfectly, yet leave behind a growing sense of emptiness, disconnection, and even addiction. What begins as a private escape can slowly replace our ability to truly relate, love, or be present with another human being. Intimacy used to be something fragile, built slowly. Today, it can be summoned in seconds. Over the last decade, pornography and hookup apps have surged to record highs. In 2019, Pornhub alone logged 42 billion visits in a single year. That's 115 million clicks every day, and nearly 9 billion more than the year before. By the mid-2020s, adult sites consistently rank among the most visited on the internet, surpassing even platforms like Netflix or Amazon. Dating apps tell the same story. Global revenues grew from about $3 billion in the mid-2010s to over $6 billion in 2024. Hundreds of millions of people now swipe daily. In the US and Europe, 1 in 3 new couples meet online. In Asia Pacific, growth is even faster, plus 90%, with apps like Tantan in China or Bharat Matrimony in India reshaping relationships. Everywhere the numbers rise. North America and Europe, plus 70, 80% growth in a decade, normalized usage. Asia Pacific, explosive, plus 90%, billions of swipes daily. Latin America, Middle East, Africa, adoption climbing steadily, 65%. These platforms promise connection, but often deliver simulation without depth, pleasure without presence, companionship without commitment. The money shows us what the heart may not want to admit. When we disconnect inside, we search for intimacy in pixels and swipes, faster and faster, but rarely fulfilled. 5. Celebrity culture and toxic fame. Obsession. Why it thrives. When we feel unfulfilled or unseen in our own lives, we start living through others, especially those who appear to have it all. Celebrities and influencers become symbols of a perfect life, and our ego projects dreams and desires onto them. This obsession isn't just about admiration, it's about escape. Their fame gives us a fantasy. If I had their life, I'd finally be happy. We follow every move, every scandal, every outfit, while often ignoring our own growth or potential. Media companies and algorithms amplify this dynamic because it sells attention. But the more we idolize others, the more we disconnect from our own worth, voice, and purpose. We become spectators in the theater of fame, instead of authors of our own story. Once fame was rare and the privilege of a few. Now it's everywhere and its reach has multiplied. Over the past decade, the business of celebrity culture has only grown stronger, fueled by social media, reality shows, and influencer marketing. Global media and advertising tied to celebrities and influencers has ballooned. Influencer marketing alone expanded from under $2 billion in 2016 to over $20 billion in 2025, a tenfold increase. Streaming platforms and tabloids thrive on gossip, with entire ecosystems dedicated to keeping eyes fixed on the famous. Regionally, the trend is universal. North America and Europe, steady growth, plus 50-55%, as Hollywood, music, and sports celebrities remain central cultural exports. Asia Pacific, rapid rise, plus 70%, with K-pop, Bollywood, and Chinese social stars dominating global youth culture. Latin America, Middle East, Africa, strong growth, plus 40-65%. Local celebrities amplified by global platforms. The numbers prove it. We spend billions not just to consume art or sport, but to follow the personal lives of the people who perform them. The business thrives because our gaze has shifted outward, toward icons to worship, copy, and envy. Fame is no longer about talent alone. It's about the spectacle of lifestyle. And the more disconnected we are from our own worth, the more magnetic the lives of others become. 6. Luxury status symbols, cars, watches, designer goods. Why it thrives. In a world driven by comparison, owning becomes a way of being. When the connection to inner value fades, the ego looks for validation through what we own instead of who we are. Luxury goods, cars, designer brands, expensive gadgets become symbols of success and superiority. They don't just say, I have money. They say, I matter. And in a society where image often counts more than substance, that message sells. People go into debt to keep up appearances. Social media turns luxury into performance. But behind the polished surface, many still feel unseen, insecure, and disconnected. These symbols shine on the outside, but rarely heal what's missing on the inside. A decade ago, luxury was a niche. Today, it's a booming global industry. From handbags to supercars, the market for status symbols has surged by nearly 50% in 10 years, reaching over $370 billion in 2025. Luxury car sales climbed steadily, with brands like Ferrari and Lamborghini reporting record revenues year after year. Designer fashion houses such as Louis Vuitton, Gucci, and Dior became trillion-dollar cultural engines, with double-digit growth especially in the last 5 years. Even watches, once seen as relics of a pre-digital age, are thriving, with Rolex and Patek Philippe having wait lists that stretch for years. By region, Asia Pacific leads the growth, plus 55%, as China and Southeast Asia became the largest luxury consumer markets. North America and Europe steady plus 40-50%, where luxury brands remain cultural anchors. Latin America, Middle East, Africa, rising plus in 35-50%, especially in wealthy urban centers like Dubai, São Paulo, and Johannesburg. The message behind the numbers is clear. Luxury has become less about craft and more about identity projection. People buy to be seen, not just to own. When inner worth feels shaky, a logo or a shiny car becomes the armor of ego. The business thrives because status has become a shortcut for meaning. 7. Over-the-counter fixes, supplements, cosmetic procedures, biohacks. Why it thrives. When people feel disconnected from their inner selves, they often chase perfection on the outside. The ego says, you're not enough yet, but you could be with a little fix. So a massive market emerges: pills for energy, creams for youth, surgeries for beauty, hacks for performance. People search for shortcuts to feel better, look better, be better, without addressing the root cause: lack of self-acceptance and inner balance. These solutions aren't inherently wrong, but they become harmful when used to cover up emotional wounds or avoid inner work. The promise of instant transformation keeps people spending, but rarely healing. We try to optimize ourselves like machines, forgetting we're already whole as humans. 10 years ago, self-improvement meant patience, healthy habits, long-term care. Today, it often means a shortcut. The market for supplements, cosmetic procedures, and quick fixes has skyrocketed, growing by roughly 70-80% over the last decade. Nutritional supplements alone became a $170+ billion global market in 2025, almost double what it was in 2015. Cosmetic surgery and non-invasive procedures like Botox or fillers have seen similar booms. In the US, minimally invasive treatments jumped by over 40% since 2015, while countries like South Korea turned beauty optimization into a cultural norm. By region, Asia Pacific, the fastest growth, plus 85%, with South Korea, China, and Japan leading in cosmetic procedures and supplement consumption. North America and Europe, strong demand, plus 65-70%, dominated by wellness products and elective beauty treatments. Latin America, Middle East, Africa, rising, plus 55%, with Brazil and Dubai becoming global cosmetic surgery hubs. The numbers show us something deeper. More people are spending more money not to heal from within, but to fix the surface. Pills for energy, injections for youth, powders for performance. The ego is hungry for quick transformation. These industries thrive on insecurity, promising confidence in a bottle or a needle, while the real work of self-acceptance waits unseen. 8. Hyper-violent or escapist entertainment, shooter games, action films. Why it thrives. When reality feels overwhelming or meaningless, people crave escape, and the ego, feeling powerless or numb, often seeks stimulation, something loud, intense, or extreme just to feel something. That's why hyper-violent video games and action-packed entertainment are booming. They offer a space where control, power, and adrenaline are guaranteed. Unlike real life, there's no emotional complexity, just enemies to defeat or explosions to enjoy. For many, it becomes a release valve for repressed emotions, especially anger, fear, or loneliness. But over time, constant exposure to simulated conflict and violence can dull empathy, increase desensitization, and disconnect people from peace, stillness, and reality itself. It's not just escape, it's emotional avoidance, packaged as fun. What was once a hobby is now an empire. In the last decade, video games and violent escapist media have doubled in scale, with global gaming revenues climbing from around $90 billion in 2015 to nearly $185 to $190 billion in 2025. The number of gamers worldwide crossed 2.7 billion in 2020, meaning more than 1 in 3 humans is now immersed in digital worlds. The content is louder, faster, more extreme. Shooter games dominate charts and streaming platforms broadcast battles to millions. Esports turned into billion-dollar industries, with players idolized like rock stars. Regionally, Asia-Pacific, the powerhouse, plus 90%, home to over half the world's gamers, led by China and South Korea. North America and Europe, steady plus 70-75% growth, with gaming now surpassing movies and music combined in revenue. Latin America, Middle East, Africa, fast adoption plus 60%, fueled by mobile gaming and cheaper access to online play. The growth is undeniable, and it reveals a hunger not just for entertainment, but for escape. When reality feels heavy, games offer worlds where rules are clear, identities can shift, and victories come fast. But the more immersive they become, the easier it is to replace presence with pixels. The industry thrives because it sells not just play, but an alternate reality. 9. High stimulation experiences, parties, festivals, extreme sports. Why it thrives. In a society disconnected from inner stillness, silence often feels uncomfortable, even frightening. So people chase louder, faster, brighter experiences to distract themselves from the emptiness within. Parties, festivals, extreme sports, or high adrenaline events promise a temporary sense of aliveness. The ego loves these environments because they offer a chance to stand out, perform, and feel important, if only for a moment. But when the noise fades and the lights go out, many are left with a deeper sense of disconnection because they've only fed the surface, not the soul. There's nothing wrong with excitement, but when it becomes a substitute for meaning, it becomes an addiction to stimulation. In a world where silence feels unbearable, noise has become a business. Over the last decade, the global live events and high-stimulation experience market has surged by around 50%, reaching nearly $1.5 trillion by 2025, when including festivals, nightlife, and live entertainment. Music festivals alone have multiplied, drawing crowds of hundreds of thousands. Coachella, Tomorrowland, Burning Man, Ultra, all reporting record attendance year after year. Extreme sports followed the same arc. Adventure tourism, skydiving, bungee jumping, and high adrenaline travel experiences grew by 60-70% in demand as people sought ever stronger doses of intensity. By region, North America and Europe, mature markets, but still pleasant 45-50% growth in live events and festivals. Asia Pacific, fastest growth, plus 60%, with mega festivals in Japan, South Korea, China, and India drawing millions. Latin America, Middle East, Africa, strong rise, plus 40-55%, with Brazil, Dubai, and South Africa emerging as global party and adventure hubs. The numbers reveal it clearly. The louder and brighter the world becomes, the more tickets we buy. High stimulation industries thrive not because we are more alive, but because many of us are afraid of stillness. The marketplace feeds that fear, offering endless distraction from the quiet voice within. Unit 10, Coaching for External Success. Only wealth, dating, confidence. Why it thrives. As people drift further from their inner truth, many turn to coaching not for awakening or wisdom, but to win the external game. More money, more dates, more influence. This kind of success coaching promises quick confidence, power, and strategy. It often speaks to the ego's deepest fears. You're not enough unless you dominate, attract, or outperform. It sells certainty in a world full of uncertainty. But when coaching focuses only on external metrics, it can fuel comparison, pride, and illusion. Without inner awareness, it builds stronger masks, not stronger selves. True coaching should be about becoming, not just achieving. About aligning outer success with inner truth. Coaching was once about growth of the whole person, awareness, purpose, resilience. But in the last decade, a booming niche has emerged, coaching that promises external success only. wealth programs, dating boot camps, confidence hacks, industries that tell the ego, win and you'll be worthy. Globally, the coaching market has grown from about 2.5 billion in 2015 to over 4.5 billion in 2025, with the fastest growth in niches tied to money, influence, and attraction. Courses promising quick confidence or financial mastery have multiplied online, often priced in the thousands, feeding an industry of digital gurus. By region, North America and Europe, steady plus 65 to 70% growth, home to the largest concentration of success-driven coaching businesses. Asia Pacific, strong rise, plus 50%, with wealth and dating coaching expanding in China and India's middle classes. Latin America, Middle East, Africa, moderate but growing, plus 45 to 55%, fueled by social media visibility and aspirational marketing. The money shows us what people are seeking, not inner clarity, but outer dominance. When disconnection grows, the hunger for shortcuts to power, wealth, and attraction intensifies, and so the coaching industry thrives, not always by guiding people home to themselves, but by selling new masks for the ego to wear. The breakdown. But by looking at the data you've gathered on disconnection and comparing it with other global risk assessments, we can create a reasoned scenario-based estimate rather than a prediction. 1. The signs of acceleration. The 10 sectors we analyzed, social media, fast fashion, processed food, luxury, violent gaming, etc., are not slowing down. Most are growing 10 to 20% annually, some even faster. If those growth rates persist, within 10 years, by 2035, more than 80% of the planet will be in these cycles of disconnection. Within 20 years, by 2045, awareness-based practices may become minority behaviors unless a counter-trend emerges. 2. What breakdown means. Breakdown doesn't always mean collapse of civilization in one dramatic moment. It often shows up as A. Mental health breakdown, who already declared depression and anxiety as leading causes of disability. Exponential increases suggest a crisis in the next 5-10 years if not addressed. B. Social fabric breakdown, loneliness epidemics, declining family community structures, visible in 10-15 years with rising unrest, alienation, polarization. C. Environmental and economic strain, fast fashion, processed foods, overconsumption feed, ecological collapse. Scientists warn that humanity may cross irreversible climate and biodiversity tipping points within 20-30 years. D. Spiritual breakdown, loss of meaning, addiction to stimulation, collapse of trust, already evident and worsening each year. Point 3. The 3 scenarios. The first, optimistic scenario. Humanity recognizes the warning signs and turns toward awareness movements, sustainable practices, and collective healing. Disconnection plateaus by the 2030s. Breakdown is avoided. The second, baseline scenario, trends continue unchecked. By the early 2040s, breakdown manifests as overlapping crises, mental health, social unrest, and ecological limits colliding. The third, pessimistic scenario, acceleration, plus new destabilizers, AI misuse, geopolitical collapse. Breakdown could appear within 10-15 years by the late 2030s. And now the point 4, the key insight. If we strictly follow the money, humanity is on a trajectory toward increasing disconnection, and systems can infinitely grow on emptiness. Left unchecked, the data suggests a critical breakdown point within 1 to 2 decades, 2035, 2045. Point 5, the hope. But here is the paradox. Breakdown is not destiny. Awareness is the antidote. The same way disconnection spreads through habits, culture, and economics. Connection can spread too. If enough people choose presence, intention, and collective action, the trajectory bends. Conclusion, the mirror and the choice. What we've just explored is more than a list of trends. It's a mirror showing us what grows when consciousness sleeps. Each product, service, or activity isn't the problem itself. They're symptoms of something deeper, a society drifting away from its center, individuals forgetting who they really are, But here's the good news. Trends are not destiny. Every system, every market, every culture is made of people, and that means every shift begins within, quietly, personally, powerfully. So what can we do? First, reconnect with stillness, even 5 minutes a day. Question our cravings. Ask, am I filling a void or feeding my soul? Second, choose depth over speed. Third, seek real connection over curated images. Fourth, support creators, coaches, and businesses that align with awareness, not just profit. And most of all, remember, the most revolutionary act in a distracted world is to be fully present. This is not a call to reject society. It's a call to reshape it from within. Because when we awaken, even a little, we don't just change our choices, we change the trend. I wish you a meaningful journey.